Now jumping right into the start of the race here, y'all are going to see why it is so very important not to start in the midfield when you are in these lower lobbies. So what's going on YouTube? GT Jesse back with another Gran Turismo 7 video, and in today's video we are at Fuji International Raceway. We are driving basically the slowest car in the game. It is the Group 4 Porsche Cayman, and we are just participating in this test series manufacturers race. We've got two races that we're going to be recapping for you today. The first race is going to be a little bit of a learning experience as I didn't have a lot of time to practice heading into it, but stay tuned because it's actually still a very interesting race. You're going to see a lot of good overtaking. And then the second race is going to be a little bit more competitive, actually going to be fighting for a podium. I got a good amount of time in between races to watch some video, practice my braking points, and really had a measured improvement heading into the second race over the first. So if you do like this video, please do go on ahead and hit that thumbs up button, and if you want to see more content like this, you can go on ahead and subscribe to the channel. But either way, let me know what you think of the video in the comments below. If you enjoy these race videos, I know that I'm not an A-rated, all-star driver yet, but we're getting there, and y'all are going to be here along for the journey. So we're in qualifying right now. You'll see that that's actually the best lap time I was able to set here. It's a 149.95. And to be quite honest, that's definitely not my best showing. It ultimately ends up being in a P10 start, and typically I can get within like 2 seconds of the top 10 people on the leaderboard, really globally. Jumping right into the start of the race here, y'all are going to see why it is so very important not to start in the midfield when you are in these lower lobbies. So I'm going to go on ahead and stop talking. Y'all can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Now pay attention to the rearview mirror here, and you're going to see this Corvette send it right up the inside, and followed immediately behind him is the Porsche. And I saw it coming, I knew it was going to happen, I just got out of the way, and fortunately I came out of that one alive. But if you played Gran Turismo Sport, you would have had to watch the sportsmanship videos before you actually start playing online, and those videos very specifically say do not turn yourself into the missile, and that's what they meant when they said that. This is also what they meant when they said that. So starting the race in P10, and we avoid carnage on turn 1. We think that we're out scot-free, but unfortunately the other Porsche just goes completely AWOL off the track, comes right back on with a very dangerous re-entry maneuver, and sends me into the Shadow Realm with him. So unfortunately that's the start of our race. We're in P19. We have a lot of ground to make up, but it's actually going to be a pretty interesting race because there's going to be a lot of overtaking. So talking about overtaking, that's actually the first one we get done there, and that's going to be the theme for several of these overtakes. It's essentially just capitalizing on other people's mistakes. So that BMW, the Canadian, he serves a penalty, and I very easily get that overtake done. And heading into lap 2 now, fast forwarding a bit. On lap 2, we're going around the sweeping right-hander. We've got the other Cayman over there, who I unfortunately push a little bit wide. So Frodo, if you're watching this, I do apologize for that. That was a little bit aggressive, kind of an Ayrton Senna moment, but it happens. No harm, no foul. You're still back there. And then, I don't know what happened there with the Canadian and the McGann Trophy, but he just decides that whatever this is, it's not worth it anymore. He drops out of the pack, so I got that overtake done. Now we're back up into P16 from P20, and we are behind this Gulf, I think it's a Gulf Oil inspired Corvette, at least it has a similar color scheme, and you're just going to see exactly how slow this Cayman actually is. I actually got a much better exit, I think, out of that final corner than the Corvette did, but this Cayman is just so slow. I mean, I'm tucked right into a slipstream, and granted, the Corvette, it has great straight line speed, but tucked right into the slipstream and still barely even gaining going down the pit straight here. So really have an uphill battle with this car, but what it lacks in straight line speed, it kind of makes up for in the corners, and you're going to see some of that in this race, but you're going to see a lot more of it in the next race. Alright, so jumping ahead to the end of lap 3, and you got a couple people here that, again, I don't know what happened, they made a mistake. So I'm just capitalizing on those mistakes. We've got a 5-second penalty from the Brazilian. We've got a 3-second penalty from the Unicorn here. So they're going to go on ahead and move out of the way. Again, we're on lap 3 now, P20 to P15, and this should turn fairly easily into, P13. Now, speeding things up as we go down the pit straight here, pay attention to the Argentinian in my rear view. We're actually having a little bit of deja vu right now, and I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't paranoid heading into turn 1. But he goes for the move up the inside, and, you know, respect. He got that one done. It was clean. I gave him the room. I wasn't going defensive. We got a lot of time left, and you know, quite frankly, he's got a penalty right now, so I'm driving around him super cautiously. I know that if I don't overtake him right now, I'll overtake him at the end of this lap, but fortunately for me, he makes another mistake, and I'm able to go on ahead and get that overtake done without having to wait for him to serve his penalty. Okay, now we're still behind the Corvette here, and we're both working our way through the pack, and he just makes a little bit of a mistake there and has a sloppy re-entry to the track. Now, I hit my brakes when I saw that, you know, I was going to make contact with him. I tried to slow down as much as I could, but I get this penalty for forcing another car off the track. It's a 3-second penalty. If you ask me, it's kind of BS. I didn't force him off the track. You know, there was contact, but I didn't force him off the track. He's still behind me. But something really interesting happens here because I served this 3-second penalty, and he's behind me. He's Metal Meadows, the American in the Corvette. And he, again, you saw that straight line speed on the last lap. He could have easily overtaken me there, but he didn't. So he let me have that one, which I appreciate that, Metal Meadows. That's great sportsmanship and very respectable driving. Now pay attention here. Keith, he goes way off the track in the last corner here, heading down the pit straight. Doesn't get a penalty. I go mere inches off the track and I get a half-a-second penalty. So, you know, this penalty system, it ain't perfect. It ain't great. It's, I don't know if it's too early to say it's broken, but either way, you know, I don't know. We've got Keith there. Yeah, I don't know what happened, Keith. We're on the last lap. He just decided whatever this is, you don't want to participate anymore. So unfortunately, we lost Keith in this battle. But guys, this is pretty much it. We start in P10. We drop all the way down to P20 momentarily, and we spend the next 15 laps basically capitalizing on other people's mistakes, and we make our way all the way up to P11 here. I actually think if we had another lap, I probably could have gotten the overtake done on Man Racing as well. I was closing the gap on him. I had actually, my last lap, lap 14, I had set my fastest lap time, so I was improving little by little during this race, but alas, it's the last lap. We're going down the final straight here. I've got a half-second penalty, and Man Racing, he's just going to drive off into the sunset, and I'm going to follow him nice and slow and steady in this ever so underpowered Cayman, and finish that race in P11. So not the best finish, but definitely could have been worse. But it would have been interesting to see where we finished if we actually hadn't gotten turboed off the track on lap 1. So jumping right into qualifying for the second race here, and you can see that we have a little bit over 5 minutes left in this qualifying session, and so I've actually messed up my first attempt out, so we are going again. And as we finish up our first flying lap in this qualifying session, we'll see that we were able to pull in a 150.3. As of right now, that's good enough for a P3 start, but with there being a little bit under 5 minutes left, there's still a lot of movement that can happen there, so I'm actually going to stay out and see if I can improve upon that time and either hold or improve the starting position. So heading through the final section here, you can see, looking at the splits in the middle of the screen, that I've actually improved by about 0.2 after going through the first 2 sections. So we're about to head down the pit straight here, and we're going to see as we go across the finish line whether or not we are able to improve our time. As of right now, we've been knocked down to P5, and we want to try and improve upon that, and it looks like we do. So it's officially a 149.57, and that's temporarily going to be good enough for us to start in P3, but then the Canadian Burgermeister and the Aston Martin here is going to come in and pull it in at the last second, bump us down into P4. So that's going to be a P4 start for this race, ladies and gentlemen. Not a bad improvement after the last one, starting in P10. Kicking things off here, we're going to go on ahead and head down into turn 1, and I'm not going to lie, at this point in the race, having a little bit of flashbacks as to what happened last time, and really the ultimate question is, will there be carnage heading into turn 1? Will we escape this one alive? So Canadian brakes a little bit early. I was going to go around the outside, and then he kind of cut across, and so I'm like, alright, let's go on ahead and go for the switchback. There's no carnage, everything looks good in the rearview mirror, so not a bad start to this race. Now that Aston Martin, with that big old, what is it, a V12, or maybe it's a V8 in that one, I don't remember. Way overpowers me, but he also overpowers himself right off the track. And so fortunately, that's an easy overtake for me, right back into P3. And going around the sweeping right-hander here, we've got a 1.2 second gap to the Americans ahead. And it looks like we're going to be fighting against, what is that, is that a BMW maybe? And the WRX. So let's see what we can do. I didn't have a lot of interaction with these cars in the last race. Again, if you recall, it was just me up against the American muscle cars. So we're just gonna have a look here and see. Oh, my bad. That's not a Z4. That's a Genesis. So let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can close the gap on them. We've already shaved off half a second through that first section, so that seems to tell me that maybe these cars are also not the strongest in the corners. But that would also tell me that these cars are probably going to be a little bit OP going down the straights. So let's see what happens. I'm definitely within slipstream range here as we go around the final corner. And just going to tuck my nose up in there with the American and the Genesis here. And heading down the pit straight. So they're basically side by side right now. Kurt decides to do the smart thing and tuck into the slipstream. Honestly, if I'm Kurt at this point, I'm going to go on ahead and just start bump drafting that Subaru straight away. My poor little pig Porsche back here does not have the straight line speed to catch either of these cars if they take off into the distance. But alas, I get a little bit of a slipstream, a little bit of a tow heading back into T1. Head around the outside, go for the switchback. Not really going to make that one stick. And we'll go on ahead and see where this unfolds. We're still only about 5/10 back from P2. Now, heading around the final corner again here, you're going to see that I all but closed the gap to P2 in the Genesis. And so I'm going to get a really good exit coming out of that final corner. And you're just going to watch them just barely start to pull away. And that, again, is just back to, it attributes to the straight line speed of those cars. Or maybe it's just the lack of straight line speed in the Porsche. But either way, I got a really strong exit that allowed me to tuck into the slipstream. And he left the inside open. Maybe he thought I wasn't going to go for it. Maybe he thought I was going to bump draft. But I know how much stronger this Porsche is around the corners and in the midfield section here, or the infield section. So I'm going to go on ahead and go for it. And I actually make that move stick. The Genesis gets a little bit loosey-goosey coming out of that corner. And so that's it, folks. Now we're up into P2. And basically what you're going to watch unfold now, and we're not going to watch the entire race, but I am more or less going to kind of very patiently, very methodically, just kind of stay behind P1 here, maintain my position, and essentially wait for him to make a mistake. Because this Porsche, again, it's like the 2022 F1 cars. It's great for closing the gap, but it's not good for overtaking. Even in this infield section where there's lots of corners and I have the advantage in handling, I can close the gap and I can get my nose up the inside, but unless if the other driver makes a mistake, I'm not getting any overtaking done. So our goal here is basically just going to be build off of what we learned in the last race, build off of what we learned during the intermission, try to improve our braking points ever so slightly, and see if we can't just outperform the driver ahead and just be more consistent and wait for them to make a mistake. As soon as they make a mistake, this is their race to lose. You'll even see here I'm lifting off on the throttle. I know that if I try to tuck it up the inside right there, just not going to happen, not going to make it stick. That's a high speed left corner. It's not a good corner to go for a clean overtake. So same here, you know, I'm just kind of lifting off the throttle, staying in the slipstream, staying really close, putting the pressure on, braking a little bit early, intentionally a little bit early, and actually get the look up the inside here. So I have the look up the inside. I get a better pull, better dig out of that turn. Yet that Subaru just, you know, it just pulls on me immediately because it has the power that the Porsche does not have. So he goes really defensive on that corner. I go for the switcheroo here, not quite getting that one done. And actually I have to start being careful here because we can see that P3, you know, he's still in the game. He's in that Genesis, you know, he's still here to make an appearance, he's still here to race. And so, you know, it's not just between P1 and P2 here, even though I'd like to think that it is. But, you know, again, just kind of showing my nose up the inside and letting this driver in the Subaru here know that when you do make a mistake, I will be ready to act on it. Now we're going to go on ahead and jump ahead to lap 6 here, and if you look at the chart on the right, you'll see that I just set a personal best for this race of 150.2. P1 is currently 150.0, and I just went purple through the first sector, so my lap times are improving. I'm feeling this car, I'm closing the gap on Just Forgive Me, and I'm getting ready for the overtake. I'm feeling it, it's coming, it's going to happen soon. And then that happens. He basically lifts going around that sweeping right, and for me at that point, that's a full throttle. And so when he lifts, I go right into the back of him, and that's not his fault. I'm not saying it's his fault at all. I mean, honestly, it's my fault because I should have anticipated him braking, but I get a penalty, and that's really unfortunate because not only does it give him an opportunity to take off a little bit here, now the delta is up to about a second, but I've got a 1 second penalty. There was no damage. You know, I didn't push him off the track. I didn't exceed track limits. You know, it's just this like arbitrary 1 second penalty for swapping paint in a race. So I'm really not super enthusiastic about that. Not liking what I'm seeing in this regard from Gran Turismo. Honestly, I think that the bump draft penalties are a thing of 2020, and we're past that, but unfortunately we're going to go on ahead and serve this penalty, and we'll go on ahead and see how it impacts the rest of the race. Now we're going to go on ahead and just let those bygones be bygones, but look at the delta to P1 after one full lap going around the track. That penalty cost me about 3.5 seconds, but if you look at P2, he just overcooks a little bit going into turn 1, and just like it was, I think it was lap 2, when he overcooked it then, you know, same fashion, basically, you know, I'm going to go on ahead and just very easily get that overtake done. He got his tires dirty, and then he couldn't make the corner going into turn 3. So I've got a 3.5 second gap now between myself and P1, and I don't know if he realizes that and just like gets a little nervous or you know what's happening here, but it's going down to 3.4. I mean, maybe this Porsche really is just that strong through the corners and just that good at handling that it affords me the ability to go on ahead and close up like this. But I'm purple through the midfield again here, or through the infield, you know, sector 2, and I'm closing. We're down to 3.3, 3.4. We started this lap at 3.7, so again, you know, right now I'm on the hunt, but there's not really any tire wear in this race, so I'm just pushing, and we're gonna see how much we can't close the gap before P1 and myself go on ahead and have a nice little battle to the finish here. Now, before we jump too far ahead here, I just want to call out the fact that we're currently on lap 9. There's a 3.5 second gap between myself and P1, and I just took fastest lap. And up until this point, so for the first 9 laps, the person in P1, Just Forgive Me, he held fastest lap for the entire time. And I just want to pause and say thank you to the Gran Turismo gods, because the leaderboard is right there on the screen, and the person in P1 will have seen that I just went purple and just took fastest lap from him heading into lap 9. And as you just saw, now he can't see this, but as you just saw, I just went purple again through the first section, and just like I was saying before, I'm in this flow state right now, and this car, it's just hooking up. It's feeling so good the way that I'm driving it. And so I'm telling you, we've got a really great, really exciting race ahead here. And I'm going to go ahead and stop talking so we can go on ahead and fast forward. But again, I just went purple through sector 2 again. And so this race is really about to heat up. In just one lap, I've taken off almost a full second between myself and P1. So we're going to have a really spicy finish to this race. Now, going across the line to start lap 10, you'll see that I go purple yet again, and I see that update. Person in P1 is going to see that update, and so I'm not saying that it's having a direct influence on their performance, but if I'm in P1 and I know that I started the race really strong and maybe I'm getting tired, and I see that the person in P2 who's hunting me down basically is consistently getting faster and faster and faster, not saying it's directly influencing my race, but it might a little bit indirectly. But unfortunately, I'm just going to go on ahead and overcook this corner a little bit. I'm going to go a little bit off the track, and that is, of course, you know, just what can we expect there? We're going to expect a track limit penalty. So we get dished a half a second penalty, and it's very unfortunate because look at the delta. Look at the delta. It looks like P1 made a mistake at the same time, and so what an opportunity that I had right here to go on ahead and close the gap even more and get even closer to getting this overtake done. We're on lap 10. Time is kind of running out, but unfortunately, I also overcook it on that corner, and while the mistake that P1 makes doesn't cost him a penalty, the mistake that I make unfortunately does cost me a penalty. Now if you look at the delta between myself and P3, you'll see that that penalty actually put me at risk of P3 temporarily there, but I have a really good entry and exit into and out of turn 1, and fortunately that risk basically mitigates itself. And so fast forwarding here a full lap, we'll actually see that I go purple yet again. And so if we just go on ahead and progress this a little bit further, you'll see that now we're on lap 13. And on lap 13, after we go through section 1, we go purple yet again. As we go through section 2, we go purple again. And then if we fast forward to the end of this lap, we'll see that this results in yet again another fastest lap record for this lap. And so aside from the penalty, we've basically been setting fastest laps for more or less the last 7 or 8 laps of this race. And we're going to go on ahead. We're on lap 14 now. We're just going to let this thing unfold. And let you watch this basically unedited so that you can see we've got that delta between P1, it's 0.7. We're closing that gap. We've been closing the gap for the entire race, and it's truly just a matter of time now before we're able to go on ahead and get this overtake done, and not only get our first victory in the Manufacturers Cup in Gran Turismo 7, but also our first victory as we represent Team TCR with Tijani Community Racing. So really exciting stuff here. We're really closing the gap, and I think that P1 knows that this has been inevitable. He's seen the deltas, he's seen the fastest laps. This was going to happen eventually. It was only a matter of time, and now it's really coming down to the wire. We're on lap 14, and we're about to make it happen. So go on ahead, we're going to stick the nose up inside there, not quite there yet, and we're just going to see what happens as we go through the final section here and the penultimate lap. Alright, we get a really good exit coming out of the penultimate corner here, and we're heading into the final corner. We know that we have to get a really good exit so that we can get the overtake heading into turn 1. And I don't know what happens with P1 here, but he just parks it right on the apex. And we knew what was going to happen before that penalty came up, because it's happened 3 times now in this video. Twice in this race, twice with the same driver. We just barely tap the rear bumper and we get a penalty. There was no detrimental impact to this driver's race. Quite frankly, it was a great battle, but I absolutely had the pace. Unfortunately, I didn't quite have the racecraft to make it stick, but honestly, I mean, mistakes were made, and were they my mistakes? If you're the driver in P1 and you just park it on the apex, I don't think he thought I was going to go for that move there. I felt like I just had to maybe prove a point at that point. Looking back on it, it was a little bit aggressive. As again, another Ayrton Senna moment. But I knew that he was going to get the overtake done once we got back to the final straight, and that's ultimately what ends up happening here. But I am grateful that there was no damage, because that looking back on it could have possibly resulted in pushing him off the track and having a much more detrimental impact to the race. So again, my bad, not the best overtake, but no harm, no foul. So that's it, folks. That's pretty much the end of the race. You're gonna go on ahead and watch. I get a 1 second delta here, and quite frankly, if I could have made that overtake stick, it probably would have been a pretty clean, pretty easy run to the finish line. But as it stands, this penalty system, I won't say it's completely broken. I think it's premature to say it's broken, but you really do need to just let drivers race. And, Polyphony, doubt you're going to watch this, but if you do, there's rear contact penalties that don't result in anybody going off the track. don't result in any detrimental impact. They really ought to be adjusted for. But there you have it, folks. It's a P2 finish to wrap up the Manufacturers Test Season 2 Round 6 at Fuji Raceway. I do hope you enjoyed that video. If you did like the video, please do hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. Let me know what you think in the comments below as well, and we'll see if we can't get more of these race videos out in the future. Thanks again for watching, and have a great rest of your day.